So today we're doing inverse trig functions where we're going to do like arc sine, arc cosine, arc tangent, which in your calculator you would do second sine, second cosine, but we're going to do this without a calculator. So there are rules you need to follow. First of all, it's not on here, but you should remember r cannot be negative. Write that down. Which you should have that drilled in your brains by now, but okay, when you're doing the inverse, that means we're going to find the angle. There's no new negatives, which you'll understand what all this means in a minute. Okay, there are no new negatives. No angles can be larger than 180. There's not any in quadrant 3. The arc tan, the tan can only be in 1 and 4, and the cotan can only be in 1 and 2. Okay, so this is kind of a reference you'll see as we go along here, as this is kind of the rules you have to follow. Okay, now, so this is arc cosine says it's square root of 3 over 2, and I want the angle. Okay, so go ahead and let's draw your little thing. Okay. Now cosine is x over r. Correct? Yeah. Okay. So since this is cosine and this is x and this is r, so what's going to happen is you're going to be over here. If you have a square root of 3 and a 2, what's the theorem? What's this going to be then?
Wait, no.
No, not 2. This is 2. Sorry, video. This is 2. Because the r is the longest side. Yes. Okay, so now, I'm sorry, what's y going to be then? Remember?
1.
This is 1. Yes. So that's that theorem. Okay.
Pardon the interruption. Teachers, just a reminder that American Fidelity is here. You need to stop by and see them before the end of the day. Thank you.
Oh, we're still
Okay, so since this follows the theorem, this and this is 1, then the one across from the 1 is the 30 degrees. So it's 30 degrees.
So that's like, we just
Yeah,
follow
so you're
that.
doing the opposite. Like you're finding the angle now.
Okay.
They give you the sides, and you have to find the angle. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay, so now this one is a little trickier because it's secant, and secant is r over x, but r cannot be negative. So then which one is negative? The x. So this is a positive 2, and this is a negative 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so then when I go to do this, okay, and I have, now x is negative 1, so it's over here, and I have r is 2. Well, what's the one I'm missing? What's this over here? Square root of 3. So since that's the square root of 3, what's the angle across from the square root of 3? Yeah, so this is 60. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, but that's not the final answer. I apologize. Because it's over here in this quadrant. So you gotta add, you gotta take 180 away from it. You gotta do 180 minus 60. I'm so sorry. So what's 180 minus 60?
180.
That's like the reference angle. Like this is like the reference angle. So you're not missing 60, you're missing 120. Do y'all get that? Because it was in the second quadrant. Okay. Alright.
How am I going to show this
I don't
video?
know. I don't think you need to show it. Okay. So, I think you need to teach it.
Oh my god, that would be horrible.
Okay. Tangent is what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means it's 1 over 1. Okay. And so they're both positive. So if it's a 1, 1, what is that theorem gonna be? That means this is the square root of 2. What's this angle gonna be then? 45.
So if we already like know the angle, we don't have to really write the.
Right. Okay. Sine is y over r, and r cannot be negative, so the negative goes with the square root of 3, and the 2 is positive. Okay, so then when you look at that, okay, if y is negative, and it can't be in quadrant, it can't be over here, so you're gonna go down 3 this way, down square root of 3 this way. And then this is 2. So what am I missing? 1. Okay, now, what is this angle?
60 and then 30.
It's 60, but since you went down, or you went the other way, this is negative 60. Because you can't have angles bigger than 180. So remember that?
Yeah, you can't have it.
Yeah, so like, you can have a negative angle. So since you went back this way, it's a negative 60.
Oh, okay.
Because the rules said you can't have angles larger than 180.
So only in quadrant 2 you subtract.
Yeah, so quadrant 2 you subtract, right. There's no quadrant 3. So that's why I knew that y was negative. Well, y can be negative over here and it can be negative over here, but there's no quadrant 3. So I knew it was in quadrant 4. That's where those rules are coming in. Okay? All right. This kind of has to do with what we did yesterday. So if it's 0 and it's cosine, cosine is x over r. So that means r is 1. And so what's y then? We learned yesterday.
Define.
No, what's
Oh,
y?
sorry.
Y, it's a 0, 1, 1. Remember that rule?
One.
So it's 1. Right, y is 1 too. Okay, so when I go to graph that, x is 0, it's like over here. It's not moving anywhere, okay? And so, but y is 1, so you're going to be up here now, because y is 1. So that's 90 degrees. Okay, so your answer is 90. Because y was 1. Since y was 1, then you're up here. And when you're on the y-axis, x is 0, so that makes sense. Okay? So that's the inverse of what we did yesterday. Okay, last one. This is as hard as it's going to get, okay? First of all, you have the square root of 2 over 2. Is that any theorem that we've done? No. So, but, can't you get, like, we can fix this, do the inverse, and get the square root off the top, just like we do get the square root off the bottom. We can do that. So, watch what I'm saying. Get right here, times it to itself, and look what happens. Now I have this. Okay, now I can say that this is y and this is r. And it'll work now. Okay, so if you have something like this, that's not any of those theorems. But if I take the square root off the top and I go back to its original form, like this would be the original form before we got the square root off the bottom, now we can do it. So y is 1 and r is square root of 2, so that means x is what? X is 1. Right?
Yeah.
So this is 45 degrees. Okay. That is my presentation.
Oh my gosh.